At 14:30 local time over the Yellow Sea, a Royal Australian Navy Seahawk helicopter is circling 4 miles off 2 tankers running a hose-to-hose fuel transfer. Routine, UN-sanctioned surveillance, the kind of mission the crew had flown 6 times this rotation without a second thought, when a Chinese naval helicopter lifts off a frigate 15 miles east with a single word from Beijing: respond. The Seahawk's radar paints the contact immediately, low and fast at 130 knots inbound from the west. No IFF squawk, no digital license plate, nothing broadcasting friend or foe, just a military helicopter screaming toward them with its identification deliberately switched off. And the aircrew man calls it to the front seat in the flat cadence of someone who has been expecting exactly this. Unknown airborne, bearing 270. 4 nautical miles off the Seahawk's port side, 2 tankers are running nose-to-nose in a ship-to-ship fuel transfer, both already flagged on the UN sanctions watch list, exactly the kind of North Korean cargo Beijing has spent years officially denying it protects. And the Seahawk's forward-facing infrared turret, sensitive enough to spot a lit cigarette from 2 miles out, is locked on the hose connection, recording every single frame, because the receiving tanker's waterline has already dropped 3 feet in 14 minutes, and every 2 minutes she gets another inch heavier, meaning by the time anything stops this transfer, both ships are too committed to abort cleanly. And Beijing knows exactly what that camera is building in real time: a UN sanctions case file with a bow on it. Now here's what both sides are actually flying, because it matters. The MH-60R Seahawk is a 22,000-pound submarine hunter that doubles as a flying sensor suite. 180 knots, 450 nautical mile range, Hellfire missiles, Mark 54 torpedoes, a .50 caliber door gun, dipping sonar, and enough radar and infrared gear to turn any ocean it flies over into a glass box. While the Chinese Z9C is what happens when you license build a French helicopter and keep building it after the warranty expires. Original airframe design from 1981, older than half the sailors watching it take off. And yes, on paper the numbers are close at 165 knots and 540 nautical miles of range. But Beijing didn't send it because it was the best tool. They sent it because it was the tool that was there, like grabbing whatever shoes are by the door when your wife yells the dog got out. You're not dressed for it, but you're going. And the critical difference nobody in Beijing's chain of command is saying out loud is that every sensor reading the Chinese pilot collects lives and dies inside his cockpit unless he reads it over the radio, meaning he is flying with a walkie-talkie, while the Australian is flying with the entire Allied Pacific on speed dial. At 4 miles out, the Z9 calls on guard frequency, calm and deliberate. Foreign military aircraft, you are operating in proximity to Chinese maritime operations, alter course immediately. This from a country whose nearest territory is 180 nautical miles away. Like your neighbor calling the cops because you parked on a public street he can see from his window, the Seahawk commander doesn't hesitate. Chinese helicopter. This is Royal Australian Navy, international waters, international law, maintaining course and altitude. 90 seconds of silence. The Z9 closes from 8 miles to 4. Second warning, harder edge. Same response from the Seahawk, word for word, the kind of radio discipline they drill into you at flight school in week 1. Third call, inside 2 miles. The warning pretense gone entirely. Your actions will be met with appropriate countermeasures. Final warning. And the Australian commander keys the mic one last time, repeats himself word for word, and cuts transmit. 4 minutes after first radar contact, the Z9 is 500 meters off the Seahawk's right side at matched heading, matched airspeed, and matched altitude. And that last part matters more than it sounds, because in helicopter intercept, grammar matching altitude is the opening move of an escalation ladder. Standard separation between helicopters operating in proximity is 500 feet. 200 feet is uncomfortable, and matched altitude at closing distance is deliberately hostile. 2 helicopters in the same lane at the same speed, hoping neither one flinches, and the Z9 starts probing. Falls back 10 meters, holds, surges forward 15, holds again. Each move checking whether the Australian pilot will drift or flinch, or give an inch that can be capitalized on, but the Romeo pilot does none of those things. Hands locked, heading unchanged, altitude unchanged. While in the cabin, the aircrew man runs 4 simultaneous auto tracks on a single display covering Tanker 1, Tanker 2. the Z-9 at 500 meters, and the Chinese frigate 15 miles east, logging the Z-9's tail number against matte gray paint and walking the turret back to the primary tanker without losing a single lock. And here is where it gets truly devastating for Beijing, because every frame the Seahawk captures is broadcasting live via Link 16, a real-time tactical data network feeding Allied warships across the entire Pacific, meaning whatever the Seahawk sees, every Five Eyes warship in range sees simultaneously. And 140 seconds into the intercept, the footage is already sitting on a server at U.S. Fleet Activities Yokosuka, time-stamped, classified, and irrecoverable. The Chinese pilot's face, his tail number, his approach geometry, all permanently on record before he has made a single aggressive move. At 14:58, the Z-9 slides forward from the Seahawk's 3 o'clock to just past 2, directly into the structural blind spot created by the cockpit frame, the one window of airspace where the Australian pilot's eyes physically stop working, tucking into the truck's blind spot on purpose. And then the Z-9's nose drops 2 degrees, the airframe rolls, banks hard left with the rotor disc tilting toward the Seahawk, airspeed climbing through 145 knots, bank angle rolling past anything in any intercept doctrine anywhere. And the Australian pilot gets 3 seconds, just 3 seconds, but 6 years of flight school and 10 years of fleet time and 2,000 simulator hours collapse into a single reflex. Collective dumps, cyclic right, the airframe falls, not a smooth descent, but the abrupt, violent drop of a helicopter that just threw its lift vector overboard. And the Z-9's shadow passes across the canopy before clean air returns, and the Australian pilot arrests the descent and brings the Seahawk level, because the Seahawk's rotor sweeps a 53-foot disc and the Z-9 sweeps 39 feet, and 2 discs converging is the helicopter equivalent of 2 cars playing chicken with their steering wheels instead of their bumpers. Both lose the moment the discs touch, and neither aircraft comes home, meaning a Chinese military pilot just got within 6 feet of killing everyone on both aircraft over international waters. And in the cabin through all of it, the aircrew man never looked up, eyes locked on the display, 4 auto tracks still running, 1,150 data packets pushed to Yokosuka, while the airframe was still falling. The evasion itself recorded in 1080p infrared for the permanent record. The Z-9 banks hard, completes a 180-degree turn, and vectors back in for a second run. Same closure rate, same airspeed, same 3 o'clock position, same matched altitude, holds for 90 seconds checking whether the rotor disc dance rattled the Australian crew enough to break off and go home. And the answer it gets is 90 seconds of stone-dead formation flying. They are still here, still filming, and the Chinese pilot has been taking punches he cannot see land, because for the entire 34 minutes, the Seahawk's electronic support pod has been silently recording every radar harmonic, every IFF pattern, every data link protocol, and every engine signature off the Chinese airframe. Not jamming, not transmitting, just listening, like a sound engineer recording every note a band plays during sound check while the band thinks nobody is in the building. Meaning Beijing didn't send a helicopter to chase off a camera crew. They sent a helicopter to be the camera crew's subject. And the Z-9 that tried to erase one video clip just donated the operational security of the entire planned Z-9 fleet. 10 years of signals intelligence acquired in 34 minutes at a cost to the American taxpayer of exactly 0. The Z-9 banks east and heads home, and from where the Chinese pilot sits, maybe it looks like a partial win. The tanker is gone, the Australians were displaced briefly. But his after-action report was written for him 40 minutes ago, uploaded, archived, sitting in a folder nobody in Beijing can reach, and the Seahawk crew had already won before the Z-9 ever left the deck. If you want to see what happened when the U.S. Navy responded to another Chinese helicopter in the South China Sea, that video is right here. Don't miss it.